going to introduce you to Rota's basis conjecture. But first I'm going to start by telling you who Giancarlo Rota is. He was born on April 27, 1932 in Italy. At the age of 13, his family moved to Switzerland. He attended the Colegio Americano de Quito in Ecuador, and he earned degrees at Princeton University and Yale University. He was a professor at MIT. He was the only professor to teach both math and philosophy. He taught a very difficult probability class that hasn't been offered since he stopped teaching it. And he taught a very popular philosophy class that was only offered on Friday nights to keep the enrollment manageable. He abruptly stopped teaching the class mid-semester after surveying the class, who said that it was too easy and the test was too easy. So he found someone else to teach it and then offered a very difficult and long take-home exam, which in turn made the students petition to have him come back and teach. From 1966 until his death, he was a consultant at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, and he died on April 18, 1999 in his sleep. So this is the conjecture that we've been studying for the past 7 weeks. It states, given a set of n bases for an n-dimensional vector space, one can always make n different disjoint bases, each containing one vector from each of the original bases. This conjecture is stated for any finite dimensional space over any field. So one way of looking at this problem is to view the original bases A1 through AN, B1 through Bn, up through K1 through Kn as the rows of an array set up like this. Rota's basis conjecture states that there is a way to commute the entries of each row of this array so that each of the resulting columns forms a basis. We can also look at this by assigning each basis a color and set it up like this. Rota's basis conjecture asserts that one can independently commute each row so that all of the columns form a basis. That is, each new column basis will contain exactly one vector of each color, forming a rainbow basis. So this is an example that I set up using vectors from R3. So Rota's basis conjecture states that you can permute the rows in any way, which I did by changing row 2, these two vectors, and then completely rearranging row 3. And now that you can see that all the columns do indeed form bases, and we have verified Rota's basis conjecture for this example. So this is part of the progress that has been made so far. We looked at the Allen-Tarski conjecture, which states that for Latin squares of even size and the number of even Latin squares of size n and the number of odd Latin squares of size n are different. So now you're probably wondering how to tell if a Latin square is even or odd. So I made up this quick example. So you start by looking at the first row. If the first number is greater than the second number, we have an inversion. So here, 1 is not greater than 2, so that's not an inversion. Then you look at this for every change in number. So also in the first row, you can see that 2 is not greater than 3, so that's not an inversion, and 1 is not greater than 3, so that is not an inversion. So we have 0 inversion to this row. So you take negative 1 to the 0 and get a positive 1, which corresponds to the first row. So then we repeat this for the rest of the rows and the columns, and you get either a 1 or negative 1 for each row and column. So if you look at the second column, you can see that 2 is not greater than 3, but 3 is greater than 1, and 2 is greater than 1. So you have 2 inversions here, which makes negative 1 squared, which gives you a positive 1. So then finally, we multiply all the 1s and negative 1s together, and if you get a positive 1, you have an even Latin square, and if you get a negative 1, you have an odd Latin square. So the Allen-Tarski conjecture is first shown to imply Rota's basis conjecture over fields of characteristic 0 by Huang and Rota in 1994. It was then done in a much more simple proof by Owen in 1997. The conjecture has been verified for all even n less than or equal to 8 by a computer. It gets much more difficult when you continue to make the n greater because the Latin squares get so large so quickly. It has also been verified for n equals p plus 1 for all odd prime p by Driscoll, and n equals p minus 1 for all odd prime p by Gwynn. In all these cases, it has been proven for vector spaces over a field with characteristic 0 and some prime characteristics. Finally, we looked at Wendy Chan, who solved the conjecture for n equals 3 bases in a rank 3 matroid. She used the basis exchange theorem and solved the conjecture using 3 cases. I'm sure you're wondering what a matroid and what the basis exchange theorem states, but Mike's going to tell you about that in a minute. However, I'm going to leave you with a few Rota quotes. God created infinity, and man, unable to understand infinity, had to invent finite sets. A mathematician's work is mostly a tangle of guesswork, analogy, wishful thinking, and frustration, and proof far from being the core of discovery.